From the far reaches of space to the darkest places on Earth, join us as we explore the haunted, the cryptid, the creepy, and more. Exposing Reality Radio presents the Spectral Wolfpack Show, your paranormal nightmare, with your host, Alexander Bobolinsky.
What's up, Wolfpack? We're here with another great show for you guys. Just got back this week from CryptidCon, which was awesome. Just a little side news. And this next week coming up is Mothman Fest, which is also going to be awesome. After that, I'm going to be taking a break from traveling for about a month, and we'll be having a lot of live streams and videos coming out as well. CryptidCon was awesome, though. We got to meet like Nick Groff and a couple of the Finding Bigfoot guys. We got to meet Greg and Dana Newkirk, and it was just a really good time. So our guest tonight, we've had on the show once before, and we were talking about Florida sea, lake, and river monsters. And it's my good friend Scott Mardis. He's been an active field investigator of the Lake Champlain monster since 1992. He is a former sustaining member of the defunct International Society of Cryptozoology and a former volunteer worker in the Vertebrate Paleontology Department of the Philadelphia Academy of Natural Sciences, 1990 to 1992. He co-authored a scientific abstract about the Lake Champlain hydrophone sounds for the Acoustical Society of America in 2010. He currently lives in Bradenton, Florida, but he recently took a research expedition up to Lake Champlain, and we're going to talk about that right now. So, Scott, what's up, man?
Oh, how you doing, Alex? Thank you for having me on.
I'm doing good. Excited to hear about the trip and everything like that. How are you doing?
I'm fairly good. I don't know how many of your audience has seen the On the Trail of Champ miniseries put out by Small Town Monsters.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty good summary of the expedition from 2017. My research partner, William Durgenis, had a large boat, 3D side scan sonar, hydrophones, underwater cameras. We had just about everything we really needed.
Nice.
As far as tools last year, and we had a little luck last year. We got some hydrophone recordings that sound like the Lake Champlain sounds that were recorded in 2003, which sound like whale echolocation. We got a little of those, we think, and at the same place, we got a sonar contact of some turtle or plesiosaur-shaped object estimated to be about 10 feet long on the sonar.
I remember seeing that.
And that's in the documentary, too. So that happened in the same place around the same time on the same day. So it's possible this is significant. We had the underwater cameras down, but the water visibility was so bad we didn't get anything usable from the cameras, unfortunately. But anyway, between now and then, the original plan was we were going to go back with the same equipment this year. And Will has become very seriously ill, and he's fighting a serious illness. So as a result of that, he had to drop out, and I had to kind of rearrange plans to work in his absence. Now, for the last 2 years, in addition to working with Will, I made a friend in Vermont, John Cronin, who lives in Colchester, Vermont, and he has access to a smaller boat, and we used the smaller boat last year a little bit, too.
Mm-hmm.
So the plan was, we had a diver that went to work with us, who's also in the Champ documentary series, Jeremy Sanborn. He was working with Katie Elizabeth, but he's not working with her anymore. His plan was he's going to work with us.
Yeah.
So he became ill and had to drop out as well. So,
wow.
anyway, so I'm there. I got John. I got the boat. I got my friend Jason Lorfice, who does Bigfoot research in Vermont.
Mm-hmm.
Also has a drone camera and an underwater camera. But there was a problem with the battery in his underwater camera, so I wasn't able to use it.
Wow.
But just recently, once I got back, I took some leftover funds and bought an underwater camera, so I'm set for next time we go.
Nice. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
But
so let's see. What did I do this time? All right. Have you ever seen me talk about the Indian petroglyphs in Brattleboro, Vermont?
I'm not sure about those specific ones, but I know you have told us about some of them. But go ahead and tell us about that.
All right. Well, there's a set of Indian petroglyphs that have been known about since the 1700s, I believe, was when they were initially discovered. Originally, they were on the side of a river. Sometime around 1909, I believe it was, they built a dam and dammed the river, and they thought the water was only going to go up so high, and it went up an additional 6 feet than what they had predicted. And because of that, these petroglyphs are now underwater.
Mm-hmm.
They know the general location where they're at, and there are divers and archaeologists trying to rediscover them, but they haven't found them yet. But they know the general area where they're at.
Wow.
They believe they were made by the Abenaki, the Western Abenaki Indians,
Mm-hmm.
which were the historical tribe that lived in Vermont. I believe they're allied with the Iroquois or speak the Iroquois language.
Yeah.
Anyway, the petroglyphs depict several humanoid bird figures.
Wow.
And one is of a dog. And then the ones of interest to us would be the serpent-looking ones. There's one that looks like a giant snake.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one that looks like it has a round body with 4 flipper-like appendages or legs and a tail, and then this super long neck-looking appendage, like it's looking over its back, and it's got part of its neck bent at an angle.
Nice.
Now, nobody really knows what this is, but whatever it is, it's kind of shaped like an elasmosaur, which was a super long-necked plesiosaur that lived during the age of the dinosaurs, a marine reptile.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, most people who follow this field know there's been a lot of speculation that the descriptions of what people are seeing now, and over the years, both here and at Loch Ness, seems to be describing something along the lines of a long-necked plesiosaur.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, this may be of some significance, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean...
Well, anyway, as I was coming into Vermont, we were passing through Brattleboro, so I stopped off at the bridge, which is near the area where the petroglyphs are underwater, and took some photographs just to get some photographs of the general area. There's like a group of 3 of them. They rediscovered one set of petroglyphs, but the ones with the serpents have not been rediscovered yet. So, I originally was thinking about having Jeremy try to dive there to look for them himself, but since I found out new information that they haven't found them yet, I figure I'll let the people that are already looking find it first, and then if they find them, then I'll contact them and see if we can go down there possibly at some time in the future, or just get them to take some pictures of them and try to find out more about it.
For sure. Yeah, because that might take a while to find.
That was one minor thing I looked into.
That's awesome.
Normally I fly up and I fly back, but this time I rode up and flew back. And as a part of the reason as a side thing, for me riding up rather than flying, we were passing through Georgia, and we're able to stop off and see the famous Altamaha statue at the Visitor Center, which you recently saw yourself, I believe, right?
Yep. Yeah, what'd you think of that?
Yeah. So, it was really cool. It was smaller than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
We had a hard time finding it. It was kind of like over in the back. It's like in like a...
Yeah, I know.
Looks like it used to be a mall or something, you know?
Yeah, it was, it wasn't quite how I expected it to look on the outside either, you know? I wasn't really sure. I thought it was like a little visitor center off the interstate or something, but it was, like you said, it was kind of hard to find.
Yeah, so anyway, I was thrilled to see that after all this time. Hopefully at some point I'd like to go back with some time and money and equipment and actually investigate the real Altamaha, you know?
Yeah, I wanted
and,
I wanted to do that as well.
Well, maybe we can do that as a future project, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a really shame that little carcass that was found there earlier in the year turned out to be a bust.
Yeah, I know.
There's no smoking gun that it was a hoax, but there are a lot of red flags, so
yeah,
I doubt we'll get much new information on that. So let me see. Probably a lot of your listeners are familiar with the Eric Olson Champ video from 2009.
Mm-hmm.
Which is one of the better pieces of photographic evidence. I mean, we don't know what this thing in the video is. There's no evidence that it's not a hoax, but there's no evidence that it is either.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think it's a swimming deer or a swimming moose. Some people think it's a swimming dog.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like some kind of a turtle-ish animal, which, if you look at plesiosaurs, they were kind of turtle-ish anyway, so...
Mm-hmm.
All right, doesn't look to be a very big animal. It's the size estimates based on objects in the background and triangulation of them with maps and GPS seems to indicate that whatever it was about 6 feet long. The portion you see at the top of the water. You see this turtleish looking brown back, and then you see a longish neck and a sort of turtleish looking head.
Mm-hmm.
And there are artifacts, video resolution artifacts in the video that make it, you know, parts of it even more questionable, because you don't know if you're looking at something that is a real feature of the animal or it's just a distortion because of the poor video quality.
Yeah.
Anyway, you see it swim by this buoy at a place called Oakledge Park, and then it stops and it sinks and goes under the water, and that's the end of the video.
Yep.
Some people think it may not even be an animal. It may just be an unusual piece of driftwood that looks like an animal that's just bobbing around the water and sinking down and then coming back up. You know, we just don't know.
Yeah.
Anyway, I've been looking into this for a long time, and if you go to Oakledge Park and you drive up to the main part that's right next to the water, there's a beach, and the background is exactly the same as the way the video was framed.
Yeah.
It's the same background. But I turned out that I had been in the wrong place. I happened to look at some maps while I was there, aerial maps, photographic ones, and looked at where the monster was supposed to have gone under the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked to the right of that, and I saw these weird-looking, like a flat pattern on the other side of the woods, and I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
So I got to digging around, and I figured out it's a tennis court.
Ah.
So this time, when I went back to investigate the site, I looked for a tennis court. And I found the tennis court. I'd never noticed it before.
Wow.
And on the left side of the tennis court was another trail. that went around that I'd never been down before, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I got to go see what's at the end of this trail. So I go around the trail, and there's another little cove with the same background that you could see from the other place, but also on the right, you could see these rocks with trees on top of them that you could see in the original video.
Ah, yeah.
And it's just like a light bulb went off in my head and says, okay, this is the right place.
That's great.
And it just saw, okay, now there's more to it than that. If you've seen the On the Trail of Champ, you hear me interviewed me and talking about caves and looking for bones in caves. And the reason I want to do that is because there are caves, underwater caves in the Bahamas, where they find all these dead sea turtles. And they don't know if the sea turtles go into the caves to die or if they swim into them and get lost and can't find their way out and suffocate and die. But anyway, they go into these underwater caves in the Bahamas and find all these sea turtle skeletons. So this, made me think, well, what if there are underwater caves in Lake Champlain with bones in them under a similar circumstance? Whatever Champ is, a Champ's in plesiosaur, maybe they do the same thing. I don't know. Nobody knows.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I got to looking around. This has been going on for a couple of years. I got to looking around, and, I'm sure a lot of people listening know, but if they don't know, what is now Lake Champlain used to be marine. It used to be connected to the sea. 10,000 years ago, it had whales and seals living in it. It was salt water. And what is now Lake Champlain was simply a smaller part of a much larger sea that covered most of the provinces of Quebec and Ontario in Canada.
Wow.
And the water during the marine phase, I got it written down here. Okay, currently Lake Champlain is 400 feet deep at its maximum. During the marine phase, it was 600 feet deep, so that means it was a third deeper than it is now.
Wow.
All right, there are two caves that were carved out by Champlain sea waves that are now above ground because the water level went down. There's three. There's two on this island called Cave Island up in a place called Mallets Bay. And then in Burlington, Vermont, some distance away from the lake, there is a place called the Donahue Sea Cave. Now it's like a little isolated lagoon. It's not connected to the lake anymore. But during that time, it would have been. And there's another cave just like the ones on the islands, on that island. But it's off the highway, next to the high school almost.
Wow.
All right, so my attention focused on looking to see if there might be bones left behind in those caves now that are left behind from animals that thousands of years ago swam in there and died, right? Okay, the problem with the one near the high school is it's very difficult. You have to go down a hill. Any way you want to get to it, you have to go down this long hill to get down to where it's at. This lagoon, in the summertime, it's fairly easy to get to in the winter because this lagoon around it freezes. So you can walk to get to the cave entrance. When it's not frozen, this lagoon is filled with all kinds of nasty bacteria and algae blooms. And I don't know if you know anything about this, but these toxic algae blooms occur once in a blue moon in Lake Champlain. They happen in other places too. And they're so toxic they can kill a dog and they can make a person very sick from swimming in them.
Wow, yeah.
So this trip I was not able to figure out how to get a canoe or a kayak down there, but I think what I'm going to do next time, if I've got the money, is just buy a rubber raft, blow it up, and drag it down that hill and go into it that way. I was really reluctant to get in it and swim because it looked really nasty because of the bacteria.
Yeah, you don't want
so
to.
I wasn't able to get into that one this time, but the other two on the island, I swam over to them and actually went in them and investigated them.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I didn't, like I said, I didn't have an underwater camera. The video camera that I had before, the one I brought on my trip with me, is not waterproof, so I didn't want to swim over there with it and ruin the camera. So there's video and pictures of me swimming to the cave mouth and sitting inside the cave mouth, but unfortunately I don't have any pictures of the inside of the cave. I hope to remedy that next trip with that underwater camera I've got. So anyway, I went into the caves. There's two of them on the same island.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see any bones, that's leapt out at me, or, I mean, it's very, I could have missed a fragment of something on the floor and, overlooked it. I'm going to go back again and look again, but what I did see, the larger cave, there was some kind of a scratch going across the roof of the cave. And this scratch is reminiscent of some of those scratches that you see associated with these Abenaki petroglyphs.
Yeah.
And it was really dirty. So my plan is the next time I go in there is to go in there with some kind of a broom or a brush or something, and if I can get to it, reach it, I'm going to clean that off and see if there might be a petroglyph in that cave.
Nice. That would be awesome.
So anyway, but I was happy to at least to be able to go inside after all this time. I've been going over there, trying to figure out how to get over there and get in there for about 2 years now, and I finally got in there.
How far back?
Because of the rocks, I had to swim like 20 feet to get over there and back.
Yeah. How far back how far back does the cave go, like inside the cave?
Well, you can look at the pictures of me sitting inside of it. I guess it's probably about 10, 12 feet tall, and I would say it probably goes back about 15 feet. You walk in there, I mean, it's roomy enough. You could a family could live in there. It's big enough,
Yeah.
And there were two in the main cave. The one you see me sitting in the picture inside the mouth of it was one big room, and then off to the side, to the right, there was a smaller room with lots of wood that apparently washed into it. And then you come out of that cave and go to the left, and there's a smaller cave. And you walk in that one, it's got 3 chambers. It's smaller. It's probably about, 10 feet deep, something like that. You got to understand, this is not like a mammoth cave system.
Yeah.
The only mechanisms that created these caves, it was sedimentary rock, and the waves over hundreds and thousands of years kept digging it out a little bit at a time and a little bit at a time, so it's not very deep.
Yeah.
But if it was underwater, there could have been aquatic animals occasionally living in it and maybe even going in and dying in it. So the idea is there probably are still caves like the ones that are above ground now that are still underwater.
Definitely.
And the idea is I'll get a geologic map of the lake that shows where there are deposits of sedimentary rock around the rim of the lake.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is that's the places that if there are caves carved out by waves, they would be in those areas.
That would be awesome.
Most likely. So there's like pockets of 4 or 5 different places around the rim of the lake with sedimentary rock. So the original plan was to have Jeremy come up and dive in these places and look for the caves. So if he's up to it next year and can make it, then that's what we're going to do. That was our original plan. All right, let me see. Where was I at?
And so he got...
Okay, coming back to... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, so he got sick and wasn't able to do it this time, sadly, huh?
Yeah, so he couldn't make it.
Dang.
And my trip also got cut short early, too, because John, my friend with the boat, had to have surgery as well.
Oh.
So I had to come back early because he had surgery scheduled for the 30th. So that even further cut my trip short, you know.
Man.
So
well,
I did the best I could do under the circumstances. But anyway, getting back to the Olsen video, now that I've found the rocks where it went underwater, it's possible there might be an underwater cave or a den there. So if this was a champ, it could conceivably be going down into some kind of a cave or den there.
Yep.
Another thing we want to investigate underwater next trip, you know. Because sometimes you have a problem, and it may take you years to figure it out and to keep chipping away at it before you make some kind of a breakthrough.
Yeah, for sure, especially with
the discovery of the right place where the Olsen video was shot. You know, we can do additional studies and figure out, you know, try to take additional pictures, match the background. This will help us further nail down exactly where it was swimming at, and the exact size it is, probably. You know, this will help a lot, go a long way toward that. And if it's still hanging around there and it's underwater, this may help us find it. I just don't know. I mean, all we can do is try, you know. I mean, what if it was a log rather than an animal, and we go down to where it went down the video and find the log, and you know, that would at least eliminate that and say, well, okay, see, it's a log.
Exactly.
You know, even that's a positive breakthrough, you know.
No, that's great. And like you said, if you find like underwater caves in that area, you might come across the den or something like that.
Yeah, I'm trying to come at this from several different angles. I'm coming at it not just from what we know about the modern sightings and the video, but I'm also coming at it from what we know about the known animals that are living in the lake and the geography of the lake and where different things are at and the geologic history of the lake. The fact that it used to be marine, which is proven by the whale and seal fossils that have been found, both in Vermont and up in Canada and in New York State, and the fact that we know that some of the fish that are living in the lake now are former marine fish that have adapted to fresh water, that are descended from animals that were living with the seals and the whales, tells us that something could have survived theoretically and made the transition from saltwater to freshwater and be what people are seeing in these monster sightings now.
Yep. Because that would have taken, thousands of years for that change, right? I mean...
Yeah, definitely.
Just kind of adapting
but
over time.
But these fish did it, so...
Oh, yeah.
That's proof that it can be done, you know.
For sure.
So see, it's getting down into the science, the deep science parts of this, that, you know, open up clues that you can take something from over here from the science part of it and look at something from the sightings record and potentially make it match up and say, okay, this over here might explain this over here, you know. Not always, but sometimes.
Yep. So I'm looking. Which of those fish were the ones that adapted like that? What are those fish called?
Well, I can think of 4 of them. right off the top of my head. The rainbow smelt,
Mm-hmm.
landlocked Atlantic salmon, the sea lampreys, which live out their whole life in freshwater,
Yeah.
and the lake trout.
Nice. Yeah, I mean that's very interesting,
And the weird thing is, the lake trout survived from the Champlain Sea and the Atlantic salmon too, but were fished to death by the people that lived there from overfishing, and then had to be restocked.
yeah.
So in other words, the transition from the Champlain Sea into modern Lake Champlain and the transition to fresh water didn't kill them. It was people overfishing that killed them.
Yeah.
So the lake trout and the Atlantic salmon that are living in Lake Champlain now have been brought from other places and are a new population that are unrelated to the original native stocks that were in there hundreds of years ago.
Wow.
Which is a kind of a sad commentary, but that's the truth.
Yeah, it is sad, but just what happens
Yeah.
nowadays.
Yeah.
About the plesiosaur, like having a den like that. I don't know if we know or not, but do we know that they could breathe underwater or hold their air and kind of?
Well, here's the interesting thing regarding that question. There are freshwater turtles that live in Australia that have figured out how to use a sac in their butt
Yeah.
as a fish gill, and they get 70% of their oxygen directly from the water, like a fish uses its gills underwater.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, well, but anyway, okay, that's an established fact. Now, there has been some speculation on one paleontology website. This is not in the scientific literature, but these guys, it's a website called Paleos, and they have suggested that possibly because the head of the elasmosaur was so small
Mm-hmm.
and the neck so long that it might have been problematic for it to breathe through its nostrils or its mouth all the time. And they have suggested that possibly they may have been getting some oxygen through their flippers, through the skin on their flippers, and through their butts in the same way that this turtle does.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you want to look this up, it's called the Fitzroy River turtle.
Yeah. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It just shows how.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not, it sounds like a joke. I mean, it sounds hilarious. I mean, you could make 1,000 jokes about this, but seriously,
Yeah, I mean, it just
all you
shows
got
how.
to do is Google butt-breathing turtle, and it'll take you right to it. I'm serious. I mean, I know it's
believe you.
hilarious,
Oh, I mean,
but it's the truth. So
it's also
I
just
suspect-
amazing.
I suspect that there's a good chance, at least it's theoretically possible from a scientific perspective and biological perspective,
Mm-hmm.
that's what these creatures could be doing. We know turtles can do it,
Yeah.
and maybe plesiosaurs could do the same thing. We just don't know.
Wow.
But anyway, that's the closest thing I have to an answer for that question. You
No,
know?
I mean, that's an awesome answer, and it's
Yeah, so-
pretty amazing that the turtles can do that. So.
until we find a physical animal behind these Champ reports, it's always, people are just going to always be able to say, oh, it ain't nothing but stories and folklore.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very important that if these things are real, that we prove they're real. Not only will that vindicate all the eyewitnesses and, show that cryptozoology is not a complete waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say if a champ was discovered, and proven to exist, then this would open up the floodgates for a lot of other things like Bigfoot and other creatures that people doubt exist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we'd be able to point to this and say, well, this one exists, and maybe this one over here does too.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So as long as we don't have a breakthrough like that, you know, it's always going to be an uphill slog.
For sure.
So, so it's very important that we get a type specimen for a champ, whatever a champ is. If it's an exotic animal, you know, and not something other than just a giant sturgeon,
mm-hmm.
you know, we've got to find proof of that. And there are two ways of doing that. You can either go out and kill one, or you can find the remains of one that's already dead.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt one. They seem to be totally harmless animals. All they do, they swim around, they eat fish, they make baby monsters, and they pop up and they say boo to people once in a blue moon. You know?
Yeah.
So they're, you know, they don't hurt people, as far as I can tell. So anyway, there's two ways of doing this that's not harmful to the animal. You can find the bones of one that's already died, and if you had enough of a skeleton and it was completely diagnostic, and you could show that it was different from any other kind of known animal that lives in the lake or that we know about, period, or you could compare it to some extinct animal that we think is extinct and say, oh, well, it's not extinct. See, here it is. You know, that would work. That would qualify as a type specimen.
Mm-hmm.
The other method you could use, they make a thing called a biopsy dart. They use it in whale and shark research right now.
Yeah.
They were originally invented to try to get a tissue sample for the Loch Ness Monster, but nobody was ever able to get close enough to a Nessie to use it.
Mm-hmm.
So they were then adapted to use in whale and shark research. And they've been doing that for 45 years now.
Very
so
cool.
anyway, what it is, it's a little dart that you can shoot with. They've got guns that shoot them now. But originally they were built to be shot with a crossbow.
Wow.
And it's a little hollow dart with a little metal thing on the end of it. And what it does, it's relatively harmless. It goes out, hits the animal on the side on a piece of its body, and takes out a little plug of skin. Normally, the dart has a rope on the end of it, and once you've got the tissue sample, the dart floats, and you retrieve it with this rope on the end of the dart. So imagine a crossbow, and it's got this little hollow dart
mm-hmm.
that's being fired, and there's a rope on the end of the dart, and it flies out, and it hits the shark in the dorsal fin, or in the tail fin, or on the side, and it just gets this little tiny piece of tissue.
Yeah.
Not very deep, just a little tiny piece of tissue. Sticks in the dart, and the dart floats, and you pull the dart back with a rope. Okay, you can take this one little piece of skin and get a DNA sample out of it,
mm-hmm.
and compare that with other animals, the DNA of other animals, and that will not only tell you what kind of animal it is and what it's related to, but you can get genetic data out of it too, which will tell you how healthy the population is and potentially how many of them are in the lake, you know?
Yeah.
So there's all kind of information that can be got from a small tissue sample like that. But the downside of that is there's never been an animal, to my knowledge, that's been established by a DNA sample alone. That's, you know, that you got this little piece of skin
mm-hmm.
with a unique DNA signature. But, you know, you can't show somebody that and say, yeah, that's this animal. In other words, there's no precedent in the biology journals for
sure.
someone using just one little piece of skin as a type specimen. So probably what you would want, and you know, this could apply to Bigfoot as well.
Mm-hmm.
Probably what you would want would be one little tissue sample with a DNA sequence, a unique DNA signature, in conjunction with bones of the same animal, because you can get DNA from bones too.
Mm-hmm.
And if you got bones that were unique, you could get DNA from the bone marrow out of the bones if they weren't fossilized,
mm-hmm.
and compare that with what you got from the tissue sample and say, well, see, these are the same animal. These are the bones of that animal with a tissue sample, and those combined would put this animal in the zoology books and give it a Latin name.
Nice. Yeah.
And then, if that was the case, then you would have to go to the Department of Wildlife Conservation and say, look, this is a unique animal. We only know of this one confirmed population. You have to protect these animals as an endangered species.
Oh, yeah.
Now, there are already laws on the books in Vermont and New York State that supposedly protect champ.
Nice.
But I think they're more, I mean, you know, the idea's in the right place, but I think they're more for show
mm-hmm.
than anything else. I mean, if I wanted to be a smartass and go out on the lake with a harpoon
mm-hmm.
and say, yeah, I'm going to kill champ, how are they going to prosecute me for attempting to molest an imaginary animal?
Yeah.
Now think about that. It would get laughed out of court, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the only angle, if they were going to seriously try to stop me, is, oh, you're going to endanger the sturgeons. You might hit a sturgeon thinking it's a champ or something. You know, they could pull that one. But seriously,
yeah,
a good lawyer could get that thrown out of court, probably. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, I mean, the sensible way to go about this is you prove the animals exist and get them real protection.
Mm-hmm.
You know? I'm not saying I can do it. I'm just saying that is the goal.
Definitely.
It's a lofty goal, and it's, you know, it's a needle in a haystack, but that is the way to go, you know? Because the best photographs and the best videos are never going to get the job done, especially now
mm-hmm.
when you got computer-generated effects that look real. Exactly. I mean, you can do just about anything with computer-generated effects and make it look real.
Exactly.
If you put enough money and effort into it, you know?
Yep.
So I don't care if you've got a picture, a video of you shaking hands with Bigfoot. Somebody's always going to be able to say, oh, you did that on a computer.
Yep.
So, you know, the idea is you got to find remains of something.
Mm-hmm.
A bone, a skeleton, something. But absolutely, you know, I've heard these, you know, some people want to kill a Bigfoot. I'm totally against that.
Me too.
If Bigfoot is a real animal and flesh and blood, there are remains of dead ones. We just haven't found them. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm against killing these creatures as well. And, yeah, I could never do that. Like, I still couldn't believe about the St. Simon's Island guy that he didn't take at least a piece of it with him, or, you know, something.
I mean, even the biggest idiot in the world could have gone out there, could have went and got a garbage bag, put it in a garbage bag, throw it in the trunk of his car, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, how hard is that?
That made me, I was just like, why? Why would you not, like, bring that with you?
I mean, that's like a big red flag there, you know?
Yeah,
you look
exactly.
at it, you know, okay, if it was real and the guy thought it was real, he would have brought it with him, because he could have made a shitload of money and become famous.
Yep.
But the fact that he didn't tells me that, okay, the guy knew it wasn't real, and the guy knew if he let somebody else see it other than on a photograph or video, they'd figure out real quick that it wasn't real.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I think it's some kind of half-assed tourist publicity stunt that
definitely was had a lot of red flags, like you said.
Yeah. I mean, you know, anatomically, you know, trying to figure out, you know, a lot of people were trying to make it into a basking shark and trying to make it into a frill shark, but the more you look at it, the more anatomically that just was not feasible.
Yeah.
So you're left with the conclusion it's either a clever model or it's a real unique dead animal.
Yeah.
So,
man.
as long as nobody has coughed up the carcass, then we'll never know. So it's a waste of time to pursue it unless something new information comes up, you know?
Exactly. We had a question from the chat here about Champ. What type of food source do you think it would require, and if its food source is available for a brood to survive on?
Well, we don't know what they are. We assume that they are primarily fish eaters because that's the most abundant food supply that they have to eat in the lake.
Mm-hmm.
According to the sightings record, there are occasionally sightings on land, but they're usually not far from the water.
Yeah.
Like just crawled ashore for a small, time and then stayed really close proximity to the water and then went back in the water for the most part, So,
wow.
There are large salamanders in the lake, which could be another potential food source besides the normal fish. They might eat frogs. I would assume, we know that plesiosaurs ate crayfish and clams. So there's another possibility. That's what the sturgeon eat. They eat sturgeon. They eat crayfish and clams off the bottom, mussels. So it's entirely possible that that's what these things are eating too. There was a report from 2004, allegedly, of a champ attacking a seagull.
Wow.
And then there's a cryptozoologist I know named Dave Gibson from New York State. He lives in Florida now. He primarily researches Bigfoot, but he's told me a story about he was on his boat and he thought he heard something take a duck on the water.
Nice.
So he is inclined to think, based on what he heard and the fact that he went to this place, I can't remember where it is, maybe it's Westport, and that as it starts to get dark, all the birds apparently seem to disappear and get off the water for some reason.
Yeah.
So taking all that together would make you think, well, maybe they occasionally take birds too.
Very cool. I would love to see that happen. Like that would
who wouldn't? But anyway, regarding that question, there is evidence from the fossil record of plesiosaur teeth bite marks on an aquatic bird from like 80 million years ago, somewhere in that time range.
Wow.
And they also found out, I believe it was in Kansas, they found that inside the stomach of a plesiosaur, they found the bones of a small pterodactyl. So
yeah.
maybe they ate pterodactyls, the small ones too. Or maybe it was a dead one, they scavenged it. I don't know,
I remember seeing that picture.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the drawings that eyewitnesses make, the really detailed ones that eyewitnesses make of Champ, and you look at some of the video and photographic evidence, the less ambiguous ones that can't be dismissed as a log or a wave, you see something that kind of resembles a plesiosaur.
Definitely.
That doesn't mean that's what it is, but that's a good indication that it could be. So, until we find physical remains and can confirm it is a plesiosaur, if that's possible, we just don't know. I'm inclined to think that it probably is. If it is, it would have had to have survived its extinction for millions and millions of years from the time of dinosaurs and lived out in the open ocean
Mm-hmm.
and then came into the Champlain Sea somewhere in the neighborhood of 12,500 years ago.
Wow.
And then got trapped. It'd have to be a breeding population.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the rivers that connect Lake Champlain to the ocean, there are two of them, but there are all sorts of dams and canal systems on them that would make it very, very awkward for some kind of a large animal to get in and out.
Definitely.
Theoretically, you might could have a baby one come in, but it wouldn't be able to go back out without being conspicuous. So, but I would imagine that's a rare occurrence. I think it's more likely there's just a small but stable breeding population. Who knows? They could be in the process of dying out as we speak. You know?
Yeah.
So,
because I mean,
we just don't know. And that's another point I hear a lot of people talking about hot spots.
Yeah.
There are no hot spots for Champ. If there were hot spots, we'd know where to look and find them.
Yeah,
They pop up all over the lake. So I'm sorry. I hear people talking about hot spots, and I don't believe that. I also don't believe that they're hibernating back in swamps.
Mm-hmm.
If they were, we'd know about them. I don't think they're animals with legs with feet, because I think we'd know about them that way too. You know, I mean, they'd be too amphibious. There are too many reports. There's like 4 or 5 reports of flippers on Champs. Most of the sightings that you get don't describe the appendages because the appendages are underwater. But if you look back through the sightings record, there are like 4 or 5 reports that mention flippers.
Yep.
So that's what I base my argument on. So
very interesting. Another question from the chat. I know we went into this a little bit with the caves, but they're wondering: are there still caves underwater that lead to the ocean? Do you think? I mean, I guess you.
Well, it's possible. There's speculation that eels in certain places migrate through underground rivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, but the thing is, there's no evidence at this point of it, and there's no evidence of it in Loch Ness for it either. And two telling things is that in Lake Champlain and Loch Ness both, there is no current evidence of a salinity higher than a normal freshwater lake, which you would expect that if water was coming in from an ocean
to
the ground, that you would get a slightly higher salt content than what you normally see in a freshwater lake. And also, you would probably notice the tides going in and out.
Mm-hmm.
Regular basis.
Definitely.
I mean, they are connected roundaboutly to the ocean, both Loch Ness and Lake Champlain. But like I said, there are all sorts of dams and obstructions. At one point, there's a change in elevation of 16 feet.
Wow.
At a dam. So that means something would either have to follow that dam and fall 16 feet down to get in the water,
yeah,
or have to crawl up 16 feet to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real problem. So
definitely,
if you've got a resident population, of animals that are in the lake all the time, that's not a problem because they're not having to go anywhere. The problem they have then is being able to sustain a healthy population without new members coming in and replenishing the gene pool, so to speak.
Yep. Yeah. So as far as the lake, what they say, it's 107 miles long, 14 miles wide in some spots.
I think it's somewhere between 120 and 126 miles long. I think the widest part is going from Burlington to Port Kent, which is 11 miles, I think.
And you live
It takes an hour to get across from the ferry. And then the deepest part is at Split Rock, south of the ferry in Charlotte,
Mm-hmm.
400 feet deep.
Yeah, I mean,
and you got a place called Basin Harbor, from like Basin Harbor north to Colchester, Vermont. This is the middle part of the lake. It's regularly around 250 feet deep, that whole area right through there.
Yeah.
So that middle part of the lake, the really deep part, is probably, you could compare it to Loch Ness. It's really deep, and there's a lot of water there.
Definitely.
And you get out in the middle of it, and it's like, oh my God, look at all this water.
Yeah.
I mean, you saw some of the drone footage on the Trail of Champ, right?
Oh, yeah.
You could see the boat from the drone.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it made us look tiny once he got up with the drone way up high, you know?
Yeah, just surrounded by deep water, lake water.
Yeah, so there could be all sorts of things down there, you know? The biggest fish they know about is the lake sturgeon, and they can get 7 feet long, so that's an impressive fish right there.
For sure.
And it's a fish that looks like a cross between an alligator and a shark. So if you didn't know what it was, I mean, you'd think that was a monster, you know?
Yeah, they're pretty scary looking.
One other thing I wanted to mention, I was trying to look into this last trip. I was trying to locate a place called the Bradenton Lignite. And what that is a coal deposit from 20 million years ago.
Wow.
In Bradenton, Vermont. And lignite is a type of low-grade brown coal that is in this place. And mixed in with the coal are preserved plant fossils.
Wow.
There are no animal fossils that they have found yet, but for some reason the plant fossils are preserved.
Mm-hmm.
And what this has to do with Champ is that there was one aquatic plant, phytoplankton,
Mm-hmm.
microscopic plant animal, that they found there in those deposits. They think may be a missing link between marine dinoflagellates, which is what they call this animal, and freshwater dinoflagellates. And so what this means is potentially, because of the age and the kind of creature it is,
Mm-hmm.
that it may have come from somewhere else, from salt water. Now, this would have been 18 million years before the ice ages.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a creek that runs from Lake Champlain now to Bradenton called Otter Creek. Bradenton is a little bit to the east of Lake Champlain, but it's connected to it by that long creek. So I did some digging in the geology literature, and I found out that there was a version of Otter Creek that existed before the Ice Age. And this is, you got this real, potentially, this creature came from salt water.
Mm-hmm.
So where I'm going with this is that it's possible that if you follow this and do more investigation, you may find this points to evidence of there being a Lake Champlain with marine connections 18 million years before the Ice Age.
Wow.
So what this means is this potential that maybe there were champs in Lake Champlain or whatever body of water it was then before the Ice Age.
Mm-hmm.
And what really makes that significant is that we know that before the Ice Age, that there were in that area, there were sturgeons and gars
Wow.
and bowfins, probably sea lampreys. I don't know for sure about them, but we have fossils of all three of those other fish,
Mm-hmm.
and these fish currently inhabit Lake Champlain, and they've been around since the age of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
You can go to northern Canada to a place called Axel Heiberg Island, way up in the high Arctic of Canada, and they found freshwater deposits from the age of the dinosaurs, and mixed in these freshwater deposits are plesiosaur teeth,
Mm-hmm.
fossil gars, and fossil bowfins. So what this means is there's a good chance during the age of dinosaurs, that plesiosaurs were eating some of the fish that live in Lake Champlain now. The same kinds of fish. So
No, that's
maybe that's make it too much of a speculative leap, but it not only says that these animals were around before these ice ages, but they may have been there before where Lake Champlain is now, in another body of water, left when the ice came, and then returned after the ice melted.
Yeah.
But that's that's a real possibility. So
that's pretty amazing
well,
stuff.
I think you've hit the witching hour.
Yeah, I'd like to, like we were talking about, I'd like to get you on the YouTube soon so we can show some pictures and videos. So we definitely need to do that soon.
Sure.
And then
I shot a lot of video stuff this time because I had that video camera with me.
Oh, that'd be great. We could definitely do another show on there. And then also, guys,
absolutely,
we're planning on we were going to get together last time I went to Florida, but there was some issues with our car, and I was with Brittany's band.
Well, I still want to try to do some.
Oh yeah, we're gonna make it happen.
Research down here during the winter because I can't do it up there because it's an iceberg.
We're gonna make it happen. Definitely.
But one last thing I want to add is I went to try to find the location of where the coal deposits with the plant fossils is.
Yeah.
And they're so grown up, the woods are so grown up, you need a chainsaw to get back in there.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm still working on that one, but
I understand that. Like with some of the stuff I've been doing, I'll get. The other day I got caught in this thicket for like 30 minutes, and I was like trying to cut out of it with my knife and stuff, and just and that maybe something's back there. Like people haven't been back there in a while, probably.
Yeah.
If not ever. But before we close it out, just so everyone knows the links, I put some links to Scott's groups in the description. So if you want to join those groups, and
yeah, I'm involved in a lot of things. I have my own podcast called The Haunted Sea on Monster X Radio.
Mm-hmm.
Here lately, I've been doing some stuff with the National Cryptid Society.
Nice.
Which is Jesse James Dirtle and some of his people. So,
oh, that's great.
I'm here, there, and everywhere,
And definitely, if you guys haven't seen On the Trail of Champ, it's a great little series. But
so yeah, we're planning on going back next year, so maybe we'll have better results next year, better plans,
Yeah, it happened. This year it seemed like for me too, just a lot of plans changing or things going wrong and stuff. It's like, why?
Yeah. Well, I've got three team members that alternate going in and out of the hospital, so
yeah,
pray for them.
Definitely, I'm very sorry that happened, and we'll definitely be praying for them.
Yeah.
But anyway, man, thanks so much for coming on, and we'll definitely plan
thank you for having me, and I just hope, I hope the stuff I said made sense to people, I try to make sense.
Made a lot of sense to me, and
cool.
Definitely a lot to think about, especially with the fact about the, sturgeons being around when the dinosaurs were, and they're still in the lake.
Oh, yeah, that's a fact, yeah, beyond doubt.
Yeah, that's a big one, and then the phytoplankton too, and just the caves, and it's definitely.
Yep. So I'm trying to come at it from all these different angles, and hopefully one of them will pay off at some point.
That's great. Awesome, man. Well, we'll once I get back from Mothman Fest, we'll plan something for a live stream on YouTube. We can show some pictures and videos and talk again.
I'm up. Thanks again, man.
No, thank you, and
yep.
Have a great night, man.
You too.
All right, talk soon. All right, thanks, man.
Yep. Bye.
Bye. All right, guys, that was Scott Mardis on his recent trip to Lake Champlain, and just some theories and things going around that he's been thinking about, and discovering some very interesting stuff. Some of you guys might not know, but I have a little secret love for the lake cryptids and sea monsters, lake monsters. I've got a giant squid tattooed on my leg because I just love these giant creatures that could inhabit the earth. I know the giant squid is real, but there was a time when they thought that it wasn't. So some very interesting stuff, and we're definitely going to have Scott on again. I always enjoy talking to him, and next time we're going to do it on the YouTube. That way we can share more pictures and videos like we did the one time he was on the channel. And it's going to be good. So next Wednesday, the podcast is going to be a little bit later. It's going to start at 8:30 Central. So about 30 minutes ago, we will be starting next week's podcast because our guest Frank Lee could not get off work to start at 7. So we're going to start a little bit later. But he is the founder and director of Central Alabama Society for Paranormal Investigation and Research, CASPER for short. And he's just an awesome guy, very intelligent, and he has videos out there about how to turn a GoPro into full spectrum, things like that. He's got a lot of information about equipment, things like that. Just a super cool dude as well, and very nice. I've investigated with him only twice now. Once with Jonathan Odom, we were doing some Bigfoot investigation, and then once with Scare of Alabama with Kim Johnston, and they were both guests on previous shows. Both great shows. We covered a lot of awesome stuff as always, and I'm glad I like changing it up, so this time we went into the waters of Lake Champlain, and I got to hear some about that. And I always enjoyed talking to Scott ever since we met at Creature Weekend, and his speech was one that I definitely caught and was just captivated by it because I love this stuff. So anyway, guys, I hope everyone has a great night. Expect some live streams coming this weekend, as my birthday is on Friday, so I'm going to be live streaming my way up to Mothman Fest, and also at the hotel there, Low Hotel, and at the TNT area. Hopefully service isn't great there, but we'll figure something out. I'll at least be filming there. And I think Eric's coming up, and Keith Campbell from Wake Paranormal should be making an appearance. So it's gonna be an awesome weekend. So be looking forward to that. If you haven't seen, I put up a video earlier today about some of the animal mutilations happening in Monroe County, Kentucky, on the YouTube channel, which has been quite a little chilling story to cover. A lot of people are leaning toward mountain lion, or also leaning toward serial killer in the making. So definitely check that out and let me know what you think. And yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I look forward to seeing you guys in the next live stream. I'm not exactly sure when it's going to be, but there's probably going to be multiple ones. So stay on the lookout. Stay notified, and yeah, I'll see you guys at the next live stream, video, podcast on Facebook. I'll see you guys. All right. Arr!